Welcome you all to this last Cabinet meeting, not just for this year, but for the foreseeable future, with the first held remotely. The Council will embark upon a new system of governance after the September AGM and into a shortened municipal year because of the COVID crisis. If I can just run through a few facts about Cabinet, I think it's rather apt and right at this time, with this being the last Cabinet. Cabinet itself was, as we know, created as a result of the Local Government Act 2000 to include a leader and up to 10 members. Wirral adopted the practice in January 2001. Several meetings, believe it or not, had over 40 items and a couple had 52 and 53, would you believe? The leader during that time changed 4 times. Councillor Steve Fowkes to 2010, Councillor Jeff Green to 2011 and Councillor Phil Davis to 2019. And then, of course, myself for the last year. Since that first meeting on the 4th of January 2001, there have been 350 Cabinet meetings. 50 different councillors have sat on the Cabinet in that time. As I said, chaired by 4 leaders, with myself being the 4th. 930 Cabinet members' decisions have been taken. And would you believe we also had a coalition Cabinet during that time, with 5 Labour, 3 Conservatives and 2 Lib Dems. So can I take this opportunity to thank all members and officers, past and present, for their contributions to the civic life of Wirral over the 19 years of this system of governance, which has seen many challenges and changes. But one thing I think we all agree that was constant was to perform to the best of our ability for the residents of the borough we represent. Okay. If we can go into the agenda before us. First item is Members' Code of Conduct, Declarations of Interest.
Chair, can I just declare personal interest in agenda item 10, the Creators Career Programme. The executive head teacher of the school and the governor is heavily involved in that project. So I believe it's a personal interest and I'll be participating in the meeting. Okay,
thanks. Thanks, Councillor Whittingham. Anybody else that's got a declaration of interest?
Yes, please, Chair. Councillor Tony Jones. Can I declare an interest in item 15 that deals with the Birkenhead regeneration and the growth company? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones.
Chair, I've got the same interest to declare as Councillor Jones on item 15 to do with the Wirral Growth Company.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Usher. Okay, no more declarations of interest. Move on now to item 2 on the agenda, the minutes of the last 2 meetings held on the 17th and the 24th of February 2020. Recommendation is that the minutes of both these meetings be approved and adopted. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
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 Okay, thank you very much.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, we now go into item 3, Leaders Update. Executive key decisions taken under delegated powers on pages 1 to 38 of the hard copy of the Cabinet's agenda. These are all decisions previously made and they're all for noting. Okay, can we agree that, please, that they're all for noting? Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay, we now go into Cabinet member reports. And the first one on that is number 4, Outbreak Management. on pages 39 to 72 of your hard copy. Councillor Chris Jones, the portfolio holder. Chris.
Right, thank you, Pat. First of all, can I say a huge thank you to Julie Webster, our Director of Public Health, and the whole public health team for the absolutely fantastic work they've been doing during this crisis. I think 6 months ago, we would never have believed we were in this situation. But the outbreak plan has come from the government. On the 22nd of May, the government declared that every local area had to have its own specific outbreak plan because COVID hasn't gone away, and I think that's something we all really need to be aware of. So as well as continued alertness, we need to prevent local outbreaks and be prepared for when they occur. So the government have given us funding to support this. And the purpose of this report is to outline our local outbreak plan and to recommend the local structure and governance arrangements for it. But this is absolutely specific to COVID-19. So the plan aims to sustain the decrease in infection rates, to sustain a reduction in the risk of transmission, and to ensure vulnerable people are protected in community settings. So these are the sort of homeless people, people in residential and nursing homes where we know such high death rates have been occurring. So the plan is based on 3 key principles, and that's to prevent, control and manage outbreaks of COVID-19. And we'll continue to develop, reflecting the changing nature of the virus and other local factors. So we need to work collectively as a community, and I think this is the important part of the plan in order to stop the virus spreading. So it covers 7 themes as in the paper. Including looking for local outbreaks in care homes and schools, of course, once schools go back, and identifying and planning how to manage other high-risk places and locations and communities. And it's all about test and trace. And it's about establishing governance structures to include a new member-led board, and which is going to be called the Outbreak Management Board, which will work with the existing Health Protection Board. The objective of the Outbreak Management Board is to provide political leadership and public-facing engagement and communication so the public know exactly what they need to do to prevent any more outbreaks. It's working together with key partners, but for me as a council, it's around getting rid of those political party barriers. It's about us all working together in order to do this fantastic work. So the recommendation is that Cabinet agree the terms of reference of the Health Protection Board and Outbreak Management Board, which is detailed in Appendix 1, along with related governance structures summarised in Appendix 2 of the report. Thank you, Pat.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Thank you very much indeed. Any other comments from anybody else, please? Tony Jones, Councillor Jones.
Not me, Chair. I think that's Councillor Williamson who has a hand up.
Okay. I think your hand was from before, Councillor Jones. Councillor Williamson, is your hand up?
It is. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you.
It's just a big thank you, really, putting on record now to Chris and her team for the amazing work that they've done anyway, in general, but particularly in the face of the pandemic that's hit this country. It it can't have been easy at all. I was Public Health Cabinet member for a year, and I know what great work that they do and continue to do. And I know that Wirral residents are safe in their hands. So it's just a big heartfelt thank you today for everything they've done throughout these really difficult and worrying times. And I do think that, I know I'm personally grateful, and I know that Wirral residents are also grateful too. So thanks, Chris, and thanks, Julie Webster, and everyone else in your team. You've really made us, you've really done us proud. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Can I just comment as well that thank you, Chris, for that detailed and vital report for the health of the borough. Even more important, as the government, as you said, is enabling councils to manage now local outbreaks and has given local councils a lot of power. And I think, as you rightly said as well, it's more important than ever working together, all parties on this council, and to put aside any political differences. And to be fair, I think, as we have done since March over the last 4 months. And who would have thought, when we welcomed people into Arrow Park from Wuhan back all that time ago, that this was going to happen. And it's a credit to all the officers for all the work. Julie Webster, as Councillor Williams has said, for the outstanding work that's continued over these last 4 months. And we've been a beacon of light to other councils, to be fair. But thanks again. Okay, has anybody else wants to say anything? No? Okay, you've seen the recommendations in front of you. We now will be taking a roll call and vote on these. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Hackett. Have you got a seconder, Councillor Hackett?
Sorry, I'll second.
Seconded.
Thank you. Members, if you could switch your cameras on and then speak to vote, please, saying your name. So, Councillor Gray.
Agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Agreed.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Agreed.
Councillor Usher.
Agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Agreed.
Thank you, Leader. That's agreed.
Okay. Thank you, members. Okay, we come on to item 5. There's a raft of items on finance. And first one of those is 5A, Revenue Monitoring Quarter 1, 2020, 2021, pages 33 to 101 on the hard copy. And it's Councillor Jeanette Williamson. Councillor Williamson.
Thanks, Pat. This is setting out the details of the Q1 revenue position and the impact of COVID on budgets. It's not going to come as a great shock to anyone that COVID has had a massively detrimental effect on our budget, like virtually every council up and down the country. But we've done what has been right for our residents on Wirral. We've just been left with a very big problem within our budget. So the additional funding provided by the government has helped us in many instances, and I'm not going to sit here and criticise that. I do have to point out, however, that it hasn't gone to cover a lot of what we've had to spend or the income that we've lost during COVID. Okay, so the in-year revenue position is a budget gap of £30 million, which is something that is actually heartbreaking when you consider that we haven't long passed a no-cuts budget, which was balanced through full council, and yet we're in this position now. But as I say, we're in the same or similar position as virtually every council up and down this country. So my hope is that the government recognise this and do step in further at some point to help us all. The key reason for the gap is the overspending on direct COVID-19 related activity, our reduced ability to deliver the saving plans as outlined in our original budget pre-COVID, and significant income losses from guideline-driven closure of services. And I'd like to reiterate again that the government have not given us enough money to cover those losses, despite some of the comments and newspaper articles that have come out of late. We actually haven't got enough money from the government to cover all of that. So that's quite a worry. We're expecting some additional government funding, but it's not expected to significantly reduce the budget gap. Our reserves are depleted, and savings which could have been delivered next year face significant risk now of non-delivery without adequate funding arrangements and or significant cuts to service provision. And that also is a real worry, because we got ourselves on a stable footing in terms of the budget on Wirral, and I feel like we've been completely blindsided again. I'd just like to say at this point, this is my last cabinet meeting as cabinet member for finance and resources, and I've got the most fantastic team I've worked with for the past 3 years in Cher Halewood, in Pete Molyneux and Daniel Kerwin, and everyone else in that finance team who've put us on a stable footing and delivered some real sort of progressive initiatives within finance. So I just want to say a massive big thank you. And it's such a shame that we're actually in this position that we are, but we've understood that our residents' health comes first, and that's what we've tried to address during the pandemic. So this is the first time we've reported the risk of issuing a Section 114 notice, but it's prudent to highlight at this time and to reflect the seriousness of the position this council is in. Section 114 would not ordinarily be initiated in circumstances like COVID. It's a one-off. It's something we couldn't have predicted. It's not down, the situation we're in is not down to financial mismanagement, unlike some other councils that pre-COVID did put in for bankruptcy. Northamptonshire, I think, was probably the one that springs to mind. This is a very unique position, but we do feel that we need to highlight that, along with virtually every other council in the country that are in that same position. So, Pat, the recommendations of the report are as follows. To note the year-end forecast position at Q1 of 30.432 million adverse. To note the risks posed to delivering on the saving proposals within the 2021 budget. To note the impact of funding and expenditure as a direct consequence of COVID-19, and to note the revisions to the medium-term financial strategy 2020 to 2025. So, Pat, it's not a great position. It's not something I really envisaged ending our municipal year on, but we have to say it as it is. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Williamson, and thank you very much for that reality check. Okay, are there any comments from any members before we go into the voting? No? Okay. We'll now go into the voting. Phil McCall.
Leader, I believe Councillor Usher had his hand up there.
Oh, right. Councillor Usher, didn't see you, sorry.
Hi, Pat. Yeah, just to say that it's extremely disappointing that we were given a guarantee that we would have the finances put in place to actually deal with and respond to COVID properly, and that hasn't materialised.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Usher. Okay, we'll now do the roll call unless anybody else wants to speak.
Seconder, Leader.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So again, members, if I can ask you to turn your camera on and state your name before you vote. Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray, agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Agreed.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Leach, agreed.
Councillor Usher. Councillor Usher.
Councillor Usher, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Whittingham, agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson agreed.
That's agreed, Leader.
Okay, thank you everyone. Okay, we're now going to the next financial report, which is 5B, Capital Monitoring Quarter 2020-2021, pages 103 to 110 on the hard copy. Again, Councillor Williamson, thank you.
Thanks, Pat. So this report sets out the details of the Quarter 1 capital programme position. The capital programme has been revised to 131.6 million, reflecting the reprofiling of schemes from 2019 to 20 and the receipt of additional grant funding since the programme was approved in March. In light of the pressures facing Council, the programme will be subject to a further review, which will then be reported back to members for approval. Section 3.3 outlines the number of additional grants received since the agreement of the programme in respect to transport, highways and disability facilities. Additional bids detailed in section 3.4 and emphasis on acceptance has been on schemes which can raise income or essential health and safety works. I'd like to recommend the following recommendations. Cabinet recommends to Council the approval of additional funding for the schemes referred to in paragraph 3.3. Cabinet recommends to Council the approval of the revised capital programme of 131.7 million for 2020-21. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williamson. We now have a roll call of voting, unless there's anybody who wishes to speak on this. No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I take it you're seconding, Leader.
I'll second it. Sorry, I do apologise.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones agreed.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Councillor Tony Jones agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Nita Leach agreed.
Councillor Usher.
Councillor Usher agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Whittingham agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson agreed.
That's agreed, Leader.
Okay, thank you everyone. Okay, we're coming now to the next one on the agenda, which again is Councillor Williamson, which is the financial monitoring outturn.
Thanks, Pat. This is a bit of a lengthy one, so everyone bear with me. Thank you. The outturn report comprises of 3 elements: revenue, capital and collection summary. So the key points under revenue: we've achieved a balanced outturn to budget, albeit with a considerable use of earmark reserves of 25.3 million and capital receipts of 8.3 million. There are under and overspends across directorates, and the overspends were mainly due to the following: increased demands for services for vulnerable people, adults and children alike. Demand is sometimes about increased volumes of people requiring help, but it's also due to increased levels of complex care required by our residents, which costs us more, but shows that as a council we are delivering on our priorities. A number of savings initiatives have not materialised this year, such as the change of operating model for the floral and golf, which have also contributed to overspends in some areas. The loss of income in the last quarter of the year due to COVID-19 has also put a pressure on our budget. Underspends were seen across children's, business management and overheads. In relation to capital, the capital programme shows how Wirral Council is investing in the long-term future for the whole borough, residents and businesses. The capital expenditure for the year was 40 million compared to a revised programme of 61 million, which was reported to Cabinet in February. This report does show significant variations to the programme since Q3 and also details the changes and variances by directorate. In terms of activity in the year, in summary, adult care and health, a spend of 1.222 million, including support for extra care housing and support for vulnerable people. Business management incurred a spend of 14.4 million, including investment into our assets and digital and service improvements. Children's, an outturn of 3.866 million, of which 2.285 million was spent on schools, conditions and modernisation. Delivery services incurred the most capital expenditure of 18.7 million, with substantial investment into highways, infrastructure aids and adaptations. Economic housing growth saw expenditure of 1.7 million, involving investment in a number of regeneration projects, including Birkenhead Town Centre, new ferry acquisitions and docklands. The key points of our collection summary: the report sets out the details of the collection of council tax, business rates, sundry debtors and of housing benefit overpayments. The key indicators for council tax to draw members' attention to this morning are collection arrears have increased by 3.88 million, I think for relatively obvious reasons given COVID, people's loss or reduction in income. The bad debt provision for council tax is 17 million. Collection rates remain static at 94.8%. Council tax claimants fell by 955 in this quarter. Business rates under a continued climate of economic uncertainty mean that arrears have increased by 1.328 million. Collection rates have slightly decreased to 97.53% from 97.9%. Debts at the end of the year were 32 million, of which 16.5 million was raised in the last few weeks of year end and therefore not overdue. And bad debt provision is 8.958 million. Housing benefits saw 157.2 thousand of overpayments written off during the year. So it's quite a detailed report, but I do think that given this is our last cabinet, it was beholden on me to go through all those figures. I'll just quickly go through the recommendations now. Thanks, Pat.
Yeah.
With revenue, we note that the gross expenditure has been balanced to gross income with the appropriate allocation of reserves. We note that the general fund balance of the 31st of March 2020 is 10.668 million. We note the earmark reserves total 66.76 million. Recommendations for capital: the additional reprofiling of 19.4 million from 2019 to 20 to 2020-21 be noted. Financing of the programme for 2019-20 be noted. The programme for 2020-21 and beyond be kept under review to ensure it's realistic, deliverable and affordable. Collection summary: the Cabinet is asked to approve a write-off of 2.271 million of unrecoverable debt, which has been reviewed by the Director of Resources. Details of these write-offs are available. They're excluded from the paper to comply with GDPR this morning. The Cabinet are asked to note the following: in-year collection rate for council tax was 94.8%, an increase in cash collected for council tax 2019 to 20 of 11.7 million. In-year collection rate for business rates was 97.53%, and 86.557 million of sundry debts collected in the year to be noted. We approve the sundry debts for adult social services and other directorates detailed in the report to be written off against the provision of bad debts, totaling 2.271 million. So thank you for your patience with that. It was a very detailed and quite a technical report, but as I say, I think necessary given it's the last one coming to Cabinet. Thank you, Pat.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Williamson. I think all of us would agree that given what's happened since COVID, the finances on all councils are not in a good state, to say the least, and it's going to be a struggle going forward. Well, thanks for that detailed information. Does anybody else want to speak? No? Okay. We'll now take the roll call of votes. I'll second that, by the way. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray, agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones, agreed.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Councillor Tony Jones, agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Anita Leach, agreed.
Councillor Usher.
Councillor Usher, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Whittingham, agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson, agreed.
Thank you, Leader. That's agreed.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, members. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll now come on to item 8, Wirral, Tree, Woodland and Hedgerow strategy, pages 159 to 288 on the hard copy. Councillor Elizabeth Gray to take us through this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. The tree, hedgerow and woodland strategy has grown from a tremendous amount of hard work and collaboration between the Council and Wirral Initiative on Trees. This cooperative approach with local experts advising throughout has quite rightly been commended at the highest levels. Both DEFRA and the Tree Council have praised the work done, and Friends of the Earth described this strategy as visionary. The tree strategy represents a key aspect of our climate emergency action plan, and over the next 10 years, Wirral Council will aim to double our tree cover by planting over 21,000 trees a year, and by replacing any trees felled with multiple new trees, not just the 2 trees stated in the press recently, but at least 2 trees, and depending on the size of the tree felled, up to 8 replacement trees or more on occasion. We will also, and this is quite radical, will promote natural regeneration wherever possible, which fits with our overarching ambitions to restore ecosystems and work with nature. This vital part of our climate emergency response will see us work with individuals and groups across Wirral to support Wirral Council's ambition to be carbon neutral by 2030 by providing carbon storage, as well as promoting and protecting natural habitats and biodiversity. While I'm delighted that Wirral is leading the way and recognised as such with this tree strategy, I am really disappointed that the same government that has praised our work has itself failed to emulate our high standards with their own tree strategy. The England tree strategy is now out to public consultation, and I urge everyone to take part and request that, like Wirral, the government pledge to at least double tree cover, which they've sadly failed to do. I urge you also to request the government adequately fund councils like Wirral that are taking the climate emergency seriously and have pledged to plant hundreds of thousands of trees. This is not something we can easily afford when this government has taken hundreds of millions of pounds from our budget in recent years. I urge the government to take the climate emergency as seriously as we do here in Wirral and listen to their own Committee on Climate Change, to support councils like Wirral as we set out to deliver truly visionary policies such as the tree strategy. Adequate ring-fenced funding for all types of tree planting is needed, including agroforestry and natural regeneration across the country. Much more leadership and ambition is needed from this government when it comes to tree planting and the climate emergency generally. I am so proud of Wirral Council for leading the way on this, for our hard work alongside the fantastic Wirral Initiative on Trees, and for producing a strategy that will guide all areas of the Council in their approach to trees. It will also provide a guiding framework for those we work with so that they know what to expect. And by embarking on a comprehensive review of tree preservation orders and conservation areas, by reviewing and strengthening planning enforcement dealing with trees, we will be protecting some of our most valuable assets. We will encourage local people and community groups to participate, protect and plant trees, hedgerows and woodland. We will establish a clear map of Wirral's tree and hedgerow stock and the benefits, the ecosystem services these provide, such as enhanced health and well-being, cleaner air, traffic calming and safer communities, more attractive open spaces, shade, shelter, urban cooling, reduced flooding, noise reduction, habitats for countless thousands of species, and food for wildlife and humans. Trees, hedgerows and woodland are a vital part of our lives. They are an essential part of our climate emergency response and must be promoted and protected. And this is why today I'm adding an additional recommendation to the Cabinet report. I'm asking that the enhanced protection of trees that is suggested throughout this strategy is explicitly recognised and that the strategy can be a material consideration in planning. To that effect, I've added a fifth recommendation, that Cabinet note that the tree strategy can be a material consideration in planning applications and therefore a matter that will be taken into account in delegated officer decision-making and decisions of Planning Committee. As the tree strategy says, trees are assets rather than liabilities, and the clock is ticking on the climate emergency. I therefore ask Cabinet to approve this strategy and the recommendations in this report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Liz, for that very detailed report. Can I say as well, it shows as well that we are leading the way on so many fronts as you've described, and it's also another piece, is it not, in the jigsaw of our climate change action plan. And it's also great to see how the public views have been taken on board, and with that thorough consultation undertaken every step of the way, including the scrutiny review with all members of this council and all those bodies, eminent bodies you've mentioned as well, nationally, who see this strategy and what we're doing as visionary. And it's another great example, in my opinion, of a visionary policy that we're putting forward over this last 12 months. And last 12 months, by the way, acting as a minority council, by bringing everybody along with us, as you've done with this strategy and many others. And I think also, just to finish myself, the best practice that we're showing, you're right in what you're saying. Government need to sit up and take notice and listen to what we're doing, because we are leading the way nationally, not just locally, but actually nationally. Councillor Williamson.
Thanks, Pat. It's just, sorry, I'll put my video on. It's just to say, to reiterate that really, and say again a big thank you to Liz for all her hard work on this. It's great to be nationally recognised and to be leading the way in something else on Wirral. You know, we're leading the way on so much recently. It's fantastic. Well done, Liz. I know you've worked really hard on it.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Williamson. Any other comments from members? No. Okay.
Sorry, Pat, I have my hand up.
Sorry, I didn't see it. That the hand's not coming up on my screen when people are putting their hands up, unfortunately. Councillor Leach, thanks.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah, big thank you, Liz, to yourself, to the officers, to the members of public and also the interest groups that took part in this. This is obviously very helpful with the formulation of relevant policy as part of the local plan. I think it's highly important that we do as much as we can to protect the residents of Wirral in terms of air quality, etc. And we'll certainly take this into consideration as part of any pre-planning applications that come forward. At the start of the discussions with any developers, we'll be emphasising that the tree policy is there and available for them to take consideration of. Well done to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Leach. Thank you. Okay, any other?
Hi.
Okay, Councillor Usher.
Yeah, just wanted to say that, you know, some fantastic stuff there from Councillor Gray. This not only feeds into our vital environmental sort of policies, but you know, when we ask people what they want from their communities and how we can make Wirral a better place for them, especially when you ask young people, is just a greener borough. You know, and many of these trees can potentially be urban trees, where, you know, all communities can kind of enjoy just the greenery that many of us have in our communities. It's good for mental health and pride in your area too. So thanks very much.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Usher. Okay, I haven't got any more questions from anybody. Okay, I'll second that, and we'll have a roll call of the votes. Phil, thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray, agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones, agreed.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Councillor Tony Jones, agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Anita Leach, agreed.
Councillor Usher.
Councillor Usher, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Whittingham, agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson, agreed.
Thank you, members. That's agreed.
Okay. Thank you, members. Thank you very much. Okay, we come on to item number 9, Enforcement Policy 2020, pages 289 to 310 on your
Pat.
hard copy. Yes.
Sorry, Pat, to butt in.
Yeah.
We didn't actually do item number 7, our Treasury Management
Sorry,
report.
I do
So
apologise.
it's okay. So we can leave it if you want to before I do my final report. I can do them both at the same time, if that's okay.
Okay.
All
yeah,
right,
we'll
thanks.
come on to during yours under the real living wage.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Okay, enforcement policy. Liz Gray, Councillor Gray, thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Our new enforcement policy meets all the statutory requirements of the Regulators Code. The policy explains how we will respond to non-compliance in a way that is transparent, accountable, proportionate, consistent and risk-based. The policy covers a broad range of regulatory services. Its scope takes in multiple areas, including housing, environmental health, trading standards, planning enforcement, building control, waste and environment and licensing, and it also includes safety of sports grounds. It's an overarching policy, and each separate service area will have specific technical policies which refer to it. We listened to the public, and this new policy removes some of the more contentious elements contained in the previous version concerning the use of external contractors using a zero tolerance approach, especially in waste and environment. We now have a policy which is more graduated enforcement and should be non-confrontational. However, it is robust, and officers have open to them use of all enforcement powers legally available should the situation require this. The policy allows both fairness and effectiveness in dealing with non-compliance and enforcement. It will help businesses and individuals to understand our objectives and methods for achieving compliance and the criteria we use when deciding the most appropriate response to a breach of legislation. I'm very pleased to recommend that Cabinet approve this policy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gray. Any comments to that report? No. I'm just glad to hear that we are changing our tactics from the previous way of doing things, which the zero tolerance. While people might have argued that that was the right way at the time, it certainly causes as an authority a lot of problems and a lot of bad press out there. But I think, as you rightly say, we still need to be robust in the way we collect and enforce this. And certainly during lockdown, we have seen, I think it's right to say, an increase in fly tipping and a lot of dumping in the borough. So this is overdue and is needed. So thank you, Councillor Gray. Any other questions?
Just
No?
a comment, please.
Yeah, Councillor
Chair.
Jones.
Yeah, thanks very much for allowing me a brief comment. As someone who carries the scars from the Environment Overview and Scrutiny Committee, this is a much welcome change in tack and absolutely essential to the health and well-being of the borough. And I'm absolutely delighted with the work that's gone into this, both by Councillor Gray and the officers. And it's definitely the way forward. I fully endorse it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Jones. Okay, I'll second that, the recommendations. Phil, can we have a roll call of votes, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray, agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones, agreed.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Councillor Tony Jones, agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Anita Leach, agreed.
Councillor Usher.
Councillor Usher, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Stuart Whittingham, agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson, agreed.
That's agreed, Leader.
Okay, thank you, members. Thank you very much. Okay, we now go on to item 10, Cradle to Career Programme, pages 311 to 328 on the hard copy. Councillor Tom Usher.
Thank you, Pat. obviously this is probably the last report that I'll be bringing to Cabinet, and since May of last year I've been the Cabinet member for Children, Families and Education, and in that time we've made some great progress with the quality of children's social services, and you know I really appreciate the support and dedication of all of you as my colleagues, and my fantastic team of officers, Paul Boyce and the team in Children's Services, who've all shown an extraordinary dedication to improving the lives of children and families on Wirral. And it's been an absolute pleasure to work within that team. I present to you the Cradle to Career programme report, which is a collaboration between Wirral Council, the education charities Right to Succeed and Shine, the Steve Morgan Foundation, the North Birkenhead Development Trust, and most importantly the community of North Birkenhead itself, who've helped develop a place-based approach that will reduce the inequality gap for children and young people by transforming how public services, education providers and residents work together for a collective impact. My grandmother, when I was a kid, used to tell me stories of North Birkenhead and the slums that existed there in the 1940s when she grew up in a household of 8 in a 2 up, 2 down. And I think it was understood then that the makeup and structure of a place could lend itself to either poverty or affluence. Yesterday was the 75th anniversary of the Attlee government, which built the prefab houses that allowed my grandmother and our family to finally move out of the terrible quality housing that used to exist beforehand. The place-based approach that we're taking in this report is absolutely about addressing some of the really complex problems that our communities face now. Problems that were not faced in previous decades. People's sense of community has become less tied to a particular locality. In the emergence of online communities, our social relationships have changed and taken new forms, as well as the structure of families and the circumstances in which families are raising their children have changed. Many parents are working longer hours. What we aim to do is focus on the physical environment, not individuals and their particular problems, but the physical environment of a community, better integrated and more accessible services, what we mean to do is target an entire community, aim to address issues that exist at the neighbourhood level, such as poor housing, social isolation, poor or fragmented service provision that leads to gaps or duplication, and limited economic opportunities. All of us are interested in reducing the social and health inequalities within our borough, and this is a serious contribution to achieving this. And what this particular project does is it doesn't fall into some of the pitfalls of other funded projects, which is that it's not short term, it's mid to long term. I'd like to point out as well that the projects like these are things that we can more fully support when local government is fairly funded. Councillor Jeanette Williamson has outlined the pressures that we're under, the refusal of the government to even give us back all of the money that we spent preparing for and combating COVID. And we've done some fantastic things, which I'm sure Councillor Hackett will outline, during our time organising throughout the pandemic and before then.
Yeah.
Number 10 has actually taken an interest in this project, in the Cradle to Career project, and it seems a real insult that we're praised for doing this good work and for committing to providing resources for projects like this and working in a way that really takes seriously still the poverty and deprivation that occurs in some of our communities, and then of course with the other hand decides not to cover all of the costs that we incurred whilst we assisted them in the response to the pandemic. It really is a pleasure to bring the project such as this to the last cabinet, so that we can all contribute with seriousness and conviction our dedication to tackling deprivation and ensuring we are making a difference in the lives of those we represent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Usher. Any comments from members?
Can I come in, please, Pat?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Councillor Leach.
Yeah, this is a fantastic initiative, Tom, and it's really good to see that it's not a short-term funding. Doing quite a lot of fundraising myself, it's really quite difficult when you only get 12-month funding for a project. So it's fantastic to see that this will be a minimum of 3 years, and it's great to see that we are tackling the inequalities in the North Birkenhead area. And hopefully, if we can make this a success, it can be rolled out further to other similar areas of the borough. Well done to everybody involved. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Leach. Any other comments from anybody? Yeah. Okay, Stuart.
Yeah.
Councillor Whittingham. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Really welcome this. It's really exciting. Really exciting. It's been a long time coming. As someone who lives very near North Birkenhead, even during the good years, during the Blair government, and there's plenty of funding, for local governments and projects such as this. It's sad that even after all that funding, we still end up with the problems. Still being there, and the deeply ingrained inequalities, and I think the graph of deprivation can be very much matched to the decline in industrial base, decline in dockyards, industry, and the shipyard. So it's been a long time coming. I think given that we've tried to throw money at it. Hasn't worked. I think a totally different approach is needed. Those systemic issues, and I think there's very much there's putting us in the right direction, and very much welcome this piece of work, and congratulations to Tom, the rest of the team, and of course the other parties involved in getting this off the ground, and I wish every success.
Thanks, Councillor Whittingham, and thanks, Councillor Leach. I fully agree with what's been said, with everything that's been said, and congratulations to Tom and the officers for all this work, which will make a big difference to people in this area and bring in significant financial investments, provide extra support, obviously, and education opportunities for children, young people and families in North Birkenhead, which fits in, obviously, with the Council's priorities, and is of even greater significance in the wake of the global COVID-19 pandemic. And it also fits in, as I said, with our priorities in this area in Birkenhead, with the Wirral Waters initiative, whereby a lot of development will be taking place around this area and in this area, including training opportunities for residents in North Birkenhead to meet the aspirations of the Wirral Waters and this council's ambitions. So thank you, Tom, and thank you, officers. Are there any other comments from members? No.
Anita has a comment, and so do I, Pat.
Okay, Anita, I'll let you back in first. Councillor Gray.
Thanks. I just wanted to say that well done to Tom and the team for this. It's I've been looking forward to hearing it launched for such a long time. I represent this area, and I can honestly say the people there have got so much energy and potential. There's so much potential in these communities that's not been enabled previously, and this is so well deserved for these communities, and I'm just really excited. And yeah, I look forward to seeing this develop over time. It's really, really welcome, and well done, Tom and the team. Thanks.
Yeah.
Pat, if I could just come back on those comments and just really very genuine thank you for all those comments, and I totally agree with Councillor Gray, who represents that area. Our job is to remove the barriers that prevent, success for the people in that community, and the energy and the brilliance that you've spoken about, Liz, is a vital part of the approach. We're building this kind of project with the community. It's no longer it's not about seeing communities as hard to reach. Maybe it's about seeing as some residents have said, some of the services that we have on offer as hard to access, and we need to get down there on a place-based community level and work with that community to do what we can to reduce those social and health inequalities.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Usher. Well, thanks everyone for your comments. Okay, we'll now vote on this, and we'll do a roll call. Phil, thank you.
Sorry, Leader, did Councillor Leach still have a comment to make?
No, she's made that.
Right, thank you.
Could I just second this, please?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Councillor Leach to second it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray, agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones, agreed.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Councillor Tony Jones, agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Anita Leach, agreed.
Councillor Usher.
Councillor Usher, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Stuart Whittingham, agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson, agreed.
Thank you, members. Leader, that's agreed.
Okay, thank you, members. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, before we come on to item 11, consideration of gaining real living wage accreditation. Forgive me, as Councillor Williamson reminded me, I missed out one of the items earlier on in finance update, and that was Treasury Management. The
Thanks,
annual
Pat.
report. Thanks,
Pat. This is quite a short report. People will be relieved to hear. So the key points of the report is that the Council has an obligation to report twice a year on Treasury management. This report provides the 2019-20 outturn position. In this year, Treasury management made £0.9 million worth of savings above the £2 million worth of savings that were already budgeted for. The Council continued to be proactive in the year saving monies by using cheaper short-term borrowing rather than take on new longer-term debt. The report confirms that the Council has kept the prudential indicators set as part of the Treasury management strategy and which form part of our systems of financial control. The recommendations are that we agree the 2019-20 Treasury Management Annual Report. We note the saving of an additional £0.9 million above the budgeted savings target from Treasury and capital financing activities in 2019-20. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Williamson. Okay, unless there's any questions on this, I think we'll go straight to the vote. So if we can have the roll call, please, Bill. Thank you.
Certainly. Just before someone seconds this, Leader, I believe the recommendation should be to both agree the Treasury Management Annual Report and to recommend it to Council. So if you're happy to make that amendment, Councillor Williamson.
Yes.
I believe this
Thank
needs
you.
to go to full council. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
And you seconding that, Leader?
I'm seconding that. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones agreed.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Councillor Tony Jones, agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Anita Leach agreed.
Councillor Usher.
Councillor Usher, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Wiskin, agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson agreed.
Okay, thank you, members.
Screen.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Phil. Okay, as I said, we'll now come on to consideration of gaining real living wage accreditation. Councillor Williamson.
Thanks, Pat. This is a really positive report, and I'm so pleased to be my final report of our final cabinet meeting. It's a really great one to end with. It provides cabinet with work undertaken in anticipation of the council becoming accredited with the Real Living Wage Foundation, who approached me after we made the fantastic decision to pay our care workers the real living wage as part of our COVID, part of a raft of measures during COVID. I think that care workers have long since been left behind for many reasons, and it wasn't acceptable, particularly as the work they do is so invaluable. We made that decision, and off the back of that, and I have to say we were certainly the first across the combined authority and one of the first in the country to do that. The Real Living Wage Foundation read about the great things we're doing and approached me to say they would work with me to enable us to become an accredited council. So it's the Living Wage Foundation is an independent organisation that recognises the leadership of responsible employers who choose to pay a real living wage based on the cost of living, not just the government minimum. We've been in discussions with the Living Wage Foundation about what the requirements the council would need in order to qualify for that accreditation. There are 3 key reasons why it matters to pay the real living wage: safeguarding workers from in-work poverty. It's only through accreditation that local authorities can ensure that all the money they spend is being used to pay people the real living wage. Investing in the local economy, the cumulative impact of local authorities paying the real living wage. Workers earn enough to live, they have more income to spend in the local economy. It certainly contributes to our community wealth building strategy, for sure. Demonstrating civic leadership. Strong and visible leadership is important to the growth of the real living wage, and there's a huge opportunity for local authorities to play an even greater role beyond their own workers in tackling in-work poverty in their communities. Through accreditation, a number of local authorities are making a commitment to tackle in-work poverty in their communities. They're ensuring that all staff are paid at least the real living wage and that the independently calculated rates are implemented each year to keep up with the cost of living. As well as directly employed staff, all accredited employers must also ensure that all regular third-party contracted staff receive the real living wage. Most low-paid jobs are concentrated in contracted areas of business such as care, cleaning and security. So whilst it can be challenging to implement the real living wage as a criteria in procurement, it's here that the decision to pay the real living wage has the most impact on our lowest paid workers. The Living Wage Foundation can provide assistance and best practice in the navigation of these obstacles. There could potentially be a financial implication as a result of requiring our supply chain to pay the real living wage. However, the Living Wage Foundation has advised us that accredited local authorities have not found that they have become uncompetitive as a result of implementing the real living wage in their procurement processes. In most cases, contractors still compete and bid for the work as they did before, which I think is really important, and that kind of dispels the myth that we have still, that if we require our contractors to pay the real living wage, it will somehow be to the detriment of the council or of the quality of contracts that come in. That doesn't seem to be the case. So in order to work towards accreditation, the council will be required to identify all relevant contracts that present opportunities for embedding the real living wage with target dates for implementation. We will be required to consider building the real living wage into terms and conditions, qualification questionnaires and future supplier communications, and we will be required to plan how this will be managed in consultation with the Living Wage Foundation and establish which contracts would not be suited, such as supply contracts. On the 27th of April 2020, approval was granted under the COVID-19 response for a temporary increase in the fee rates paid to care providers on Wirral, subject to signing a contract variation which committed providers to paying all their staff the real living wage. It is anticipated the future annual fee rate consultations with care providers will include discussions on the real living wage rates. A survey of our top 50 contracts by value has been carried out and an active response was received by our suppliers and providers. The main result found that 63% already pay the real living wage as a minimum, so while there's still much to be done in consulting with suppliers around payments of the real living wage, almost 2/3 of our suppliers already are fulfilling this requirement, which is really good news. The next steps to gaining accreditation are to carry out further consultation with suppliers to determine if there maybe are any additional financial implications of the requirement for them to pay it, and if so, to consider this alongside the Council's budget position for 2021-22. A further paper will come to Policy and Resources Committee in the autumn for a decision. Now, this is been led by myself and by a Labour-led authority. I'm fairly confident that as we go into the committee system, this will continue and we will be able to become accredited, as I'm sure that every politician of every hue will agree that paying our workers the real living wage is a massive step forward for us as a council, and it's absolutely the right thing to do. We need to give our workers dignity, respect and enough income for them to have a good quality of life. It's the bare minimum that we owe to our residents and our workforce. So inequality is at the very heart of what we need to tackle as the council going forward. We need to look at and reduce inequality of income, of health and of well-being. And for me, this is a massive step forward. It's a great and an optimistic thing to end my tenure as Cabinet Member for Finance on, and I'm really confident and optimistic this will go forward and we will become accredited really soon. So thank you all, and thanks Pat, and a good note to end on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Great note to end on. Okay, any comments from any members?
Pat, I'd like to comment, please.
Anissa, yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Janetta. Really welcome this detailed report and the comments that you have made with regards to this. I think the COVID-19 crisis has actually made us realise that we are very dependent on people who are paid a low wage. And so I really welcome the discussions that we're having on this. You know, the same people who have been helping save lives are struggling themselves in terms of fuel poverty and food poverty. So I really welcome the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Leach. Any other comments?
Yes, please, Pat.
Yeah, Councillor Jones.
I'd just like to thank Jeanette for the work she's putting in on this. I know what a difference the extra money has meant to many care workers during this crisis. And these are the people who have been putting themselves at risk every time they go to work, as well as the cleaners and everybody else. So I really welcome this and thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Yeah, I think again, we are leading the way on this with others following. And as you say, in terms of this accreditation, they've sat up and took notice following the decision of the real living wage for care workers, which Councillor Jones has just mentioned. And we are the only one in the City region to do this. And rightly, we should be proud we're putting money into the pockets of workers on the front line, taking those risks on our behalf. So thank you for leading on this, Jeanette, and leading also on the Community Wealth Initiative and Community Bank which all will make a difference to the lives of local people and our local businesses. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And again, it's another
Comment, Pat.
example of a policy, a unique policy with those I've mentioned that we're putting forward this year that are making a big difference to the lives of local people, the people we represent. Councillor Usher.
Thanks, Pat. So I've got just a quick comment and then a question for Phil McCourt, if you don't mind. So I've worked with autistic adults for 8 years, and during the lockdown, our organisation has been, working extremely hard to make sure all of our service users are safe, and we've not had a single confirmed case of coronavirus, and you see the dedication, the kind of responsibility that these people take on for a very low wage. They're dealing with the most sensitive and important aspect of people's lives in many ways. So I think, this is gaining sort of living wage accreditation is a fantastic step. And my question for yourself, Phil, would be, would I need to declare an interest on this item by virtue of my employment with Autism Together?
I think it's worth saying, as you have, Councillor Usher, to declare that interest, but not. I don't think the connection is sufficient to have to act on it.
That's great then. Well, in that case, I fully support it. Thanks, Jeanette.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Usher. Councillor Wissingham.
Thanks, Chair. Fully endorse this. I think it's been a long time coming, and I'd like to thank Jeanette and a big well done for leading on this. It absolutely benefits everyone that people are paid the proper wage. Because how can anyone spend money in the local economy if they haven't got the money in the first place? So I think that has been work done, and it'd be interesting to see to see that work on the multiplier effect. For every pound that's invested in the local economy, there is a multiplier in terms of benefits. If I remember rightly, one organisation I was involved with, they'd done a piece of work, and for every pound spent, generated something like £1.72 for the local economy. And big well done to the council and your leadership, Pat, for putting the money up for the care workers to get the real living wage. And I think it's absolutely shameful that there are employers who are still refusing to pay that. And I'd encourage everyone to pay that real living wage to all the staff. The staff are absolutely valuable. You don't have a business unless you've got your staff there to support you. So I fully endorse what she supports, and fully enthusiastically support it. Thank you very much, Pat.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Wissingham. Councillor Gray.
Thanks, Chair. I really wanted to say how much I support this. I think it's such an important thing for us to do. The difference it will make to people's incomes can be life-changing. The stress that's caused by underpay is appalling, and it affects health and well-being. And I'm just really proud of Jeanette and the team for proposing this. I think it's a really, really important and really good idea.
Councillor Williamson.
It was just to thank everyone really, Pat, and just to say on the note of care homes that currently are not using the funding that we provided for the purposes which it was intended, is an absolute scandal, and that's something we'll be addressing on a political level. But it absolutely is, as Liz has just said, the difference between having an adequate income and not is life-changing, and we should always aspire as a council to ensure that people in this borough have the best opportunities, and that includes a decent real living wage. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Williamson. Fully agree. Oh, absolutely. I'm not aware of anybody else who wishes to speak.
Yes, please, Chair.
Oh, yeah, Councillor Jones, yeah.
Yeah, whilst fully endorsing and supporting this and the work that's gone into it, it's absolutely fantastic. But I would like to think that as this particular item progresses through the committee system, we actually look at some timescales where we're trying to achieve a very, very high percentage. I think it's a central plank that needs to underpin this strategy is to aim and have an aspiration to substantially increase the percentage of folks who are going to benefit from this aspiration, but fully endorse and support. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much, members. Thank you. Okay, we'll come now to voting on this. Phil McCourt, if you can kindly do the roll call. Thank you.
Certainly. Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray, agree.
Councillor Hackett.
Agree.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones agrees.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Councillor Tony Jones, agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Anita Leach, agreed.
Councillor Usher.
Councillor Usher, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Sorry, it's a bit late then. Councillor Whittingham agreed.
And Councillor Williamson. Councillor Williamson.
Apologies, Councillor Williamson agreed.
Thank you, members. That's all agreed, Leader.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you very much. Okay, we now come on to item 12, business overview and scrutiny review into the new ferry Exclusion. That's myself leading on this. If you can just bear with me, please, members. Okay, the explosion, as we know, in New Ferry had a devastating effect on people's lives and businesses. Over 40 businesses reported damage. 15 of these reported serious damages and 8 were forced to cease trading with immediate effect. 32 households suffered significant damage, with 68 being displaced in temporary accommodation. We will never forget the events, of course, of that evening. And we as a cabinet, if you recall, we spoke to a lot of those who were affected, residents and traders, on a number of occasions in the town hall. Following the explosion, the council undertook the consultation with the local community, a new ferry regeneration delivery plan and was set up. And one of the key elements of the plan was to remove derelict properties from the new ferry centre, while at the same time creating development opportunities for new residential units to help to repopulate the town centre. Over the past 3 years, the council has progressed several innovative projects to regenerate the area and to rebuild the community. We are, of course, supporting the New Ferry Rangers Football Club in developing the community clubhouse in a unique approach to utilising this site, making it work smarter for all the local community. The clubhouse project sits very comfortably alongside Wirral's aspirations for community wealth building, and the project clearly hits a number of the concepts, core principles, not least plural ownership of the economy and socially just use of land and property. Using 500k of funding from the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority, the council has acquired 78 to 80 Newchester Road, former Shillings Pub, on behalf of the New Ferry Community Land Trust, with a view towards its refurbishment to enable it to be brought back into economic use. Essentially a mixed-use scheme, first floor residential with ground floor retail. The income for this will be regenerated into New Ferry for the greater good of the area. The project will provide some financial support to the CLT to strengthen its governance and to enable capacity building and future income generating activity. As part of the new Ferry master plan, the council has submitted 3 outline planning applications for 3 key development sites in New Ferry. Exclusion site, cleared site opposite on Bevington Road, and Woodhead Street car park. These are currently with development control for determination, and it is anticipated that decisions on these will be made and known shortly. Works to improve the physical appearance of the precinct in Bevington Road will commence shortly. The council will be appointing contracts to excavate the site of the explosion. That's 41 to 43 Bevington Road, by removing the concrete slab, levelling the land before applying a crush and run type finish. Once complete, this area can be used by the community for a variety of meaningful and pop-up uses until firmer plans for its redevelopment are proposed. Following this, Griffiths Butchers will be demolished to create a larger development site opposite, which in the short term can be used to create a community garden. Tenders for the demolition works were received last month. A comprehensive funding bid was submitted to the government's Future High Streets Fund in early June, as you know, and the decision is expected in October. We are hopeful of securing the millions needed to accelerate the regeneration of the New Ferry area. The Metro Mayor funding is being used to secure sustainable long-term premises for the New Ferry Community Land Trust. So a lot is happening. New Ferry is one of our priority regeneration projects, as we agreed earlier in the year. The Cabinet, of course, has considered the contents of the report from Scrutiny and the recommendations made, and are happy to accept all the recommendations, with a few observations where the recommendations cannot be fully agreed. These are recommendation 3. I'll read it out. Recommendation 3. Any future incidents that involve significant damage to a site or area, the local authority should ensure that the site is made good and landscaped once they're able to access it legally. This could be through grassing, hoardings, or involving the local community with murals. Where possible, the area should be screened to reduce the visual impact of the site on the community. The council should also actively attempt to improve the sites before we have legal access to the properties. Once the site is available for regeneration, the wider community should be consulted as much as possible to include their ideas and should be delivered. Our response to this is, this recommendation can be accepted where this is agreed with the land or property owner before the council has legal access on or on safety grounds. Recommendation 5, the authorities should delay billing until insurance companies are taking claims and or ensure that bills go with a sensitive cover letter to explain who to contact and advice on payment. Vulnerable victims should not be threatened with legal action by the council, as the impact can be particularly damaging to mental health. Proper organised advice should be given to victims regarding recovery via legal means, their own solicitor or CAB, and single point of contact should be utilised. If the site is classified as a crime scene, bills should be held back until after court proceedings have included. Our response is, this should be agreed only in relation to the following item. Proper organised advice should be given to victims regarding recovery via legal means, their own solicitor or CAB, and single point of contact should be utilised. The Cabinet is unable to agree by delaying billing, as the Council has a statutory requirement to invoice for expenditure within the year it has been incurred. Therefore, delay in sending out bills to customers where it has incurred expenditure on their behalf is not possible. However, the Cabinet agrees that vulnerable victims should not be threatened with legal actions in such circumstances where insurance companies are taking claims, and can agree to place a hold on the recovery of these invoices until this has been resolved. And finally, the last one is recommendation 8, where it says a major incident should be called early on, even if another agency has already declared one. This can always be stepped up, however, in accordance with the Council's All Hazards Emergency Plan. An off-site goal command meeting should have been called, and minutes should be taken at all meetings and made available to the public. The Chief Exec or the nominee should be directly involved in the recovery and goal command meeting in accordance with the All Hazards Emergency Plan. They should also visit the site and listen to the community. Briefings should also be sent to all elected members to ensure they're kept up to date with the events as it unfolds. Our response as a Cabinet is this can be agreed where the Council has control of goal command for future incidents and the incidents fit the criteria for declaring a major incident. Where the Council does not have goal command, it may request that a major incident is called, but not in overall control as to whether this will be granted. The Cabinet would also like to thank the Scrutiny panel for the work they've carried out and undertaken on this review. The Cabinet are pleased that a way forward has been agreed that is satisfactory to all interested parties, so that the scrutiny into the tragic event on the evening of the 25th of March 2017 can be concluded. In conclusion, the Cabinet accept the recommendations of the Scrutiny Review Group on the new ferry explosion, with the exception of the items stated above, included in recommendations 3, 5 and 8, which are beyond the Cabinet's control. Okay, any comments on any of the report or any of the statements that I've made on behalf of Cabinet? No? Okay.
Pat, I've got...
Oh, sorry, Councillor Leach, I do apologise.
Okay, thank you, Pat. I'd just really like to reiterate some of the things you said in terms of the work that the Overview and Scrutiny panel have carried out, and also to thank the community groups, the ward councillors and officers, and lastly the artist who's been involved with the artistic impressions we can now see there. This has been a very, very difficult time for the residents and the businesses of that area, and it's just fantastic to see that planning applications are now coming through to improve the site for the businesses and residents of that area. And you know, hopefully this can put this to bed really and change the perspective of people going forward in terms of looking forward to something bright and new rather than having to look back to that terrible time.
That's Councillor Leach, well said. Okay. Councillor Williamson.
So Pat, yeah, I'd just like to, I'm not going to say much more than what Anita's just said really. As someone that was affected by the blast, I think it's a good thing that we can look forward now in this area. Just to say that the murals above the shops are amazing. They make such a difference. I just wanted to say that they're great. And also on a more, on a longer term footing, the regeneration plans that we've got there now, I'm hoping we'll see New Ferry grow and prosper. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Okay. Anybody else wants to make a comment? No? Okay, we'll now vote on the recommendations. Phil McCall, if you can do the roll call, please.
Thank you, Leader. Have you a formal seconder, Leader?
I can second that.
Thank you.
Anita Leach.
Moving to the vote, Leader, Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray, agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones, agreed.
Councillor Tony Jones.
Councillor Tony Jones, agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Anita Leach, agreed.
Councillor Usher.
Councillor Usher, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Whittingham, agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson, agreed.
Thank you, members. That's all agreed, Leader.
Okay, thank you, Phil, and thank you, members. Okay, we come on to the item 13, which is the lease for new offices in the Birkenhead Commercial District. And I believe those members that have declared a prejudicial interest, I believe, will be leaving the meeting, both Councillor Jones and Councillor Usher.
That's correct, Chair. I'm going to leave the virtual meeting now. Thank you.
And Councillor Usher.
Likewise.
Okay,
Thanks, Chair.
just wait until you leave before we continue. Okay, as I say, this report is about the lease for new offices in Birkenhead Commercial District. Our plans for economic growth, as the report says, are about creating community wealth, about creating jobs and opportunities for local people and regenerating our commercial areas and inspiring ambition. Prosperous communities, as we know, are much happier and better places to live, and that is our aim in terms of a huge regeneration which we are planning for this area. The proposals within the report set out the next steps of taking forward the strategic regeneration objectives of the Wirral Growth Company for central Birkenhead. And can I say, just on a number of points in terms of the plans, they are ambitious, they are visionary, and they are transformational. All big words, but meaningful words that will make a big difference to Birkenhead. And I have to say as well, it'll be the biggest changes in Birkenhead since the days of Laird, when he created Birkenhead that we know today, and the famous icons that are within the Birkenhead locations and areas. The plans for Birkenhead by the Growth Company also encompass the Birkenhead Regeneration Framework, which takes in the whole of the area between Woodside, Hamilton Square, Birkenhead Central area, which we're talking about here, the precinct itself, and the Hine Street area. It's a huge area that's going to bring massive benefits to the people that live there. We've also been successful on a number of fronts, including the UDC, the Unitary Development Corporation scheme that we bid for from government, which is in the region of £10 million. The plans themselves include the new market, new Birkenhead market, and I have to say, having visited there on a number of occasions, the traders there are very excited about the new market going up. Obviously a little apprehensive about moving and relocating in the interim, but plans are moving ahead with that. And I know Councillor Tony Jones, in his role as the regeneration portfolio holder, has been to see them on a number of occasions, and I have myself. I think they have more confidence with somebody like myself who used to work in the market, both the old markets and what I call the new markets. So I know what they're going through, the worry and apprehension at the moment, and obviously having gone through the COVID crisis over the last 4 months, that doesn't help either. But obviously they've been helped as well, and we've helped them through the government funding that has come about, and the business grants, which has helped them and their staff and their business in the interim. So it's an exciting time for Birkenhead. We're looking also as well at the Milton Pavements area, which is now, as we know, in the council's ownership, and a planning application is expected for the commercial district, business district in August. Along with what we're doing in Wirral Waters, it inspires confidence that we're not just talking about this at long last, we're actually doing it, and doing it will make a big difference. Not only inspiring confidence, but actually people seeing things happening. As we saw the diggers in doing the remedial work at Wirral Waters, a huge area of work, which stretches from Birkenhead North, all the way along past that ribbon of development, past the college site, the Wirral Metropolitan College site. So a huge amount of work. As I say, the first bit of it is Mere Park, a manufacturing site of 12 units, and an application is expected to go in there shortly. And that fits into what we were saying earlier with Councillor Usher talking about helping people in this area in Birkenhead North. We will be helping them with training as these buildings and jobs are created, and it will make such a difference and inspire confidence in this area and beyond. So all in all, we have a huge area of transformation, of regeneration, the likes of which has never been seen before. Wirral is working with all our partners, including the Combined Authority, Homes England and MHCLG, which is the government arm in the region, to transform the area. Working with them and bringing in additional funding will make such a difference. So I thank the officers. I know Alan Evans and his team, who have done a tremendous amount of work in this area. I thank them for their continuing work. And we have the recommendations as well before us, which I'll ask you to agree. Okay, are there any comments on the report other than what I've said?
Can I just come in, please?
Stuart Whittingham, Councillor Whittingham.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic reports and fantastic plans we got for the area, and thanks for articulating and leading on this path. And of course, thanks to Tony for his work and all our predecessors. I think it's a fitting end to this period of governance that we should end on such a positive note. And I think we can bring a great deal of respect. We can call this is our legacy as the Labour cabinet administration, the regeneration of Birkenhead, and as you say, this is unseen on the scale since the days of the Laird, and that's really excellent. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the bricks come out of the ground on this, because it's been a long time coming.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Whittingham. And if I can just make one other comment before I'll let in Councillor Leach and Councillor Williamson. Also as well, it's vital to our local plan, is it not? And the amount of houses and meeting our housing targets and ensuring we don't build on the green belt. So it's vital in so many ways, and we are determined to reach those milestones and those targets. Councillor Leach.
Thank you, Pat. Yeah, I really welcome this report, and it's fantastic to see that we've got this regeneration taking place within the borough. And as you say, Pat, it's a real kickstart to the numbers of houses within the local plan on brownfield sites, and a good start really to creating the local plan on brownfield urban regeneration. So I welcome this report. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Leach. Thank you. Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, just to reiterate, Pat, I welcome it too. As Stuart said, it is a great note to end on. We very much welcome regeneration of this scale, and it also fits really well with our more locally focused and community focused community wealth building. The two work really well together, and it's absolutely vital coming out of COVID that we build our community up. So big well done to everyone, particularly Alan and his team, and Tony.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Williamson. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm proposing the recommendations within the report. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second it, Pat.
Thank you very much. Phil McCall, can we have a roll call of the votes, please?
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Gray.
Councillor Gray, agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones, agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Anita Leach, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Wiskin, agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson, agreed.
Thank you, members. All agreed, Leader.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. Okay, we come on to exempt information, the exclusion of the press and public. I'll just read it out. That under section 100A(4) of the Local Government Act 1972, the public be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following item of business on the grounds that involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined by paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A as amended to that act. The public interest test has been applied and favours exclusion. Okay. We don't have anybody, do we, Phil, of that nature? The press or public?
Councillor, we are currently webcasting. If you'd like, I can pause that while you discuss this.
No, Leader, because this is an appendix to the previous item, you will only go into exempt if a member asks to do so. Otherwise, this is a formal vote to exclude those papers and the papers only from the meeting. So you can go straight to the vote and then move on to item 16 unless something wanted to be discussed. Okay, I've had no indication that anybody wishes to discuss anything within this. It's the business case, and as Phil McCord says, we'll do it this way. Okay, Phil, thank you. Thank you. I'll take it for the same seconder. So Councillor Gray. Okay.
Councillor Gray, agreed.
Councillor Hackett.
Agreed.
Councillor Christine Jones.
Councillor Christine Jones, agreed.
Councillor Leach.
Councillor Anita Leach, agreed.
Councillor Whittingham.
Councillor Stuart Wiskin, agreed.
And Councillor Williamson.
Councillor Williamson, agreed.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Thank you, members. So we can go straight into 16 now, Phil, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we come on to the last item, which is my leader's report. This will be followed by a video after, and it's basically setting out what we've done over the last year. And forgive me if I don't explain in more detail some of your portfolios, but between my report and the video, I think everybody has a fair crack. Okay, just to begin, the last year, I think we all agree, has been a great experience, has it not? It's been a bag of mixed emotions at times, and I can truly say I'm proud myself to be leader of a council and cabinet that has grown so much in a short time. And I do believe I've been part of something special, and it's been a privilege to work alongside so many ambitious individuals leading a strong workforce to achieve collective goals and ultimately make massive strides in our vision for the borough. The past few months have been, and we have had to deal obviously with a crisis, the likes of which most of us have never encountered before in our lifetime. The way we live and work has been completely turned upside down. Faced with unprecedented challenges and with pressures placed on us to protect and support our communities like never before, I've watched this council, its fantastic workforce, and the cabinet with me today, in fact all members of this council, overcome every barrier, make quick, difficult decisions and to come together to lead this borough through one of the most difficult periods this country has ever seen, without a doubt, since World War II. The way I'd say as well, the workforce has adapted, has been beyond what we thought could happen, and they have rightly been praised for the quick turnaround to help local residents right from March onwards, and rightly winning plaudits as the first in the country on so many fronts. So this Cabinet sends out our sincere thanks to them all, to all our workforce. Wirral has undoubtedly led the way. And I'd like to take the next 8 minutes or so, if you don't mind, to highlight and update you on some of our achievements during this extraordinary year, this very last Cabinet year. The first one of those achievements I'd like to tell you about is, of course, the local plan, which will shape this borough for years to come. Thousands of comments were made by more than 1,700 individuals, can you believe, and organisations to the issues and options consultation documents released at the start of 2020 during extensive and wide-ranging consultation. The consultation document showed how Wirral would meet the requirement for new homes and employment space and the regeneration of key areas across the borough, as well, of course, as protecting our greenbelt land. Following the obvious difficulties resulting from the global COVID pandemic, we have now informed MHCLG, that's the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, that additional time is needed to complete the work required to take the development of the local plan to the next stage. Extending the timescales will ensure we have developed a robust, sound local plan that not only protects our green belts, but shapes the regeneration needed of our borough, improves the health and lifestyles of our residents and boosts employment opportunities. We will be considering our ambitious and exciting proposal for the regeneration of Birkenhead, of course, which is at the heart of the local plan in autumn 2020. Streetlights. Work to replace the borough's streetlights with energy efficient LED lights has reached a milestone of approximately 10,000 after continuing throughout the lockdown. Phase 2 of the project began in September 2019, and the 2-year programme has already seen 10,000 streetlights fitted with LED lanterns and 1,500 columns replaced as of mid-June. These changes to the network have resulted in an energy saving against the old lanterns of approximately 60% and a CO2 reduction of approximately 400 T per year. Although lockdown meant many council services had come to a standstill, this was one area where we were able to continue to make progress. This is great news for residents, communities and the environment, and also good news for us and for you as local councillors. Community Bank. In a major step forwards for a community bank, Wirral, together with Preston and Liverpool councils, saw the registration of the new mutual society called North West Mutual Limited, approved under seal by the FCA on the 28th of May 2020. This establishment of the mutual is a key factor in the council's local economy recovery strategy. With the continued closure of many high street bank branches, this initiative will be aimed at supporting the most vulnerable people and small businesses in the Wirral, struggling to access the banking services they need. This is just another way in which we are committed to financially supporting our businesses and residents. Keeping Wirral green. We passed our emergency climate motion at Council in July 2019 and set about getting to work on a plan of action under the direction of the portfolio holder Liz Gray, who has worked right across the sector with many groups and individuals and has put environment right at the top of the agenda over the last year. And as we have seen in the previous report, the wonderful tree strategy forms part of that. Work has continued throughout this period to ensure Wirral plays its part in the global efforts to tackle unnatural climate change. Over the last few months, Wirral's existing cycling and walking infrastructure, for instance, has provided access around the borough to help maintain physical and mental well-being during this time. We want to ensure sustainable and active travel can continue to be supported as lockdown eases. As we continue to invest in facilities and infrastructure to support cycling and walking, we are set to receive a share of a 1.9 million Department of Transport Emergency Active Travel Fund for Merseyside, and are already looking into measures to support increased active travel. To get this right, we're asking residents for their support and feedback to help identify roads, routes, paths and areas that could be adapted to help maintain social distancing or improve cycling or walking. Regeneration, which continues to shape the borough. As we continue to see evidence of major regeneration for Wirral, as I explained earlier, the second phase of the Tower Road project is now also underway. The project at Tower Road is a major investment scheme that will form a significant part of Wirral's extensive regeneration programme, and it is important now more than ever that we build a stable economy where residents will have access to jobs and businesses. We have a vision for a borough, as I said earlier, with economic growth and a greener and more sustainable environment at the centre. And once this project is complete, the improvements at Tower Road will support increased active travel, as well as supporting the wider Wirral Waters development. This is just one of several projects that will position Wirral as a desirable place to work, invest, live and enjoy. And I thank Councillor Tony Jones as the regeneration portfolio holder for all his work on this. Increasing the affordable living and housing. Increasing the levels of social rented housing in the borough is of course a priority for us to achieve. Our journey so far has showed there are several approaches that can be taken to achieve an outcome of truly affordable homes. I'm pleased to say during this year 45 units of social rented accommodation started on site, with the majority anticipated to be completed by the end of the financial year. This has been achieved in conjunction with Wirral Council, working with our registered partners, Taurus and Magenta, and has been delivered through a combination of the council disposing of land assets and partners seeing Wirral as a place to live and invest. We are now able to drive the housing market like never before, working with investors, developers, registered providers, small local developers, charities, mutuals, and most importantly, communities to deliver high quality new homes for all. I'm positive that our journey will continue, and through our regeneration opportunities and collaborative working with partners, work is already underway to identify the next sites where social rents or properties with rents capped at social rents can be delivered for the future. Can I thank Stuart Whittingham for his work to date on this. A borough for tourism and culture. There are so many great reasons to visit and stay in Wirral, but just as the tourism season was about to begin, the COVID-19 pandemic impacted heavily. Some of the exciting events planned for 2020 as a legacy of the Borough of Culture will be now rescheduled to 2021. As soon as lockdown restrictions allow, we aim to build on the opportunities created by the Borough of Culture and present an events programme with wide appeal for residents and visitors alike. And I would like to thank Councillor Chris Briggs for all her work over this last year on a lot of these great and fantastic projects. Support for care. The COVID crisis reminded us of just how crucial our care sector is to our communities. At the beginning of this month, we received more than £4 million of government funding, which we have invested into workforce resilience, helping to reduce the risk of infection by ensuring staff work in just one care home at a time, and in some cases limiting their need to use public transport for work. This money is a welcome boost for helping to reduce the risk of infection team with strategy and guidelines for preventing the spread of the virus will go a long way to help reassure care workers and reduce health risks for both staff and residents. Daycare and extra care housing providers have also benefited from additional council funding, with a one-off payment of £200 for each person who's received care from them during the first week of lockdown, week commencing March 2020. The funding will support them to meet the additional costs they've experienced due to the COVID-19 pandemic, such as staffing, infection control and equipment requirements, helping them to provide the best possible care to those they support. Back in May, almost 12 million extra funding was committed to supporting care workers on the front line of tackling the coronavirus epidemic in Wirral. This move included a long-term commitment to extend, as we heard earlier, the real living wage and full sick pay, which, as we saw, as I say earlier from Jeanette, we're looking at gaining the real living wage accreditation. On top of this, we've also have extra funding for the domiciliary carers and those working in supported living. We should all be proud as a Cabinet and a Council and officers as the only local authority in the city region to pay this the real living wage, because we know it's the right thing to do to our care providers and our workers who have faced a number of challenges over the last few months, with staff going above and beyond to provide care for our vulnerable residents. And can I thank the staff and Councillor Christine Jones for all her work on this. It's been a credit to all concerned. Support for children and young people. Following the Ofsted inspection, which saw Wirral Children's Services moving out of government intervention, we pledged that putting children and young people at the centre of all the decisions we make was a key objective. Never was this so true as during the past couple of months, with organisations having to look at how best to provide their service amidst the growing health emergency. Wirral Children's Centres rose to the challenge to keep on supporting families in the borough. Like others across the country, Wirral Centres needed to temporarily suspend classes and close some centres in response to the virus. But Wirral went above and beyond to ensure families didn't feel alone and continued getting their support while little ones could keep on learning. With over 200 virtual classes and 18,000 individual views, the classes have provided that much needed virtual ear and shoulder to lean on. For our children and young people of the future, we are making progress with plans to provide better facilities for young people in Morton as part of wider proposals from the Wirral Growth Company to develop the site next to the library at Pasture Road in Morton. Despite the limitations imposed by the COVID lockdown, a variety of virtual and social media channels have been used to invite young people in Morton to have their say on the proposed re-provision of the youth facilities. That feedback will be used to inform the wider consultation on the extensive plans for the Pasture Road site, which is due to be taken forward by the Wirral Growth Company later in the year. We saw more of that innovation today, did we not, in an earlier report when Councillor Tom Usher told us about the Cradle to Career programme. So I thank Councillor Usher and all this great staff for all their work over the last year. COVID-19. When we welcomed visitors from Wuhan at the end of January, little did we know that over 6 months later, we will be where we are today. As well as continuing to deliver essential services, we have gone above and beyond to feed, support and protect our residents. To date, we have provided around 17,000 food parcels, distributed 8 million pieces of PPE, processed over 6,500 local welfare assistance applications, supported 116 schools to remain open, administered more than £50 million in grant payments supported over 3,000 of our most vulnerable in domiciliary care or care home settings, facilitated a 400% increase of our fantastic staff to work from home, with a 350% increase in online meetings, brought all rough sleepers off the streets and into safe and secure accommodation. Just to finish, as we cautiously move into some sort of business as usual, we must take with us what we have learned and use this to continue to build a council that we, our businesses, our residents, and in fact our grandchildren can be proud of. A council built on trust, working first and foremost for the residents of this borough, the residents we represent. A council built on community. I'd like now to show a video which encapsulates all we have done as a cabinet and as a council over this last year. So if you can just bear with us, thank you. Okay, members, a great video, even without the music. I think we would all agree. Councillor Jones, you wanted to make, Councillor Tony Jones, do you want to say something?
Yes, I don't know if it's the appropriate time. Perhaps your deputies ought to speak first, Pat. Then I'll come in at the end if that's appropriate. Thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Leach.
Thanks, Pat. I'd just really like to say a big thank you to everyone for putting that together. Also, a massive thank you to Cabinet for all of the work that they've done against a very difficult backdrop, really, with the COVID crisis. You know, at this time, we've made some significant achievements, as you've seen from the video there. And I'd like to make a particular thanks to you, Pat, for your leadership, and also for delaying your retirement to assist with the COVID crisis. I'm sure it was a very difficult choice for you to have made at the time. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks a lot.
I'd also like to thank all of the scrutiny groups for the work that they've undertaken. And a particular thank you to Alan Evans and Keith Keeley from my own portfolio for the work that they've done in terms of the local plan. They've just absolutely worked tirelessly. They've engaged the general public and also some groups, interested groups in a lot of things like the green and blue infrastructure, etc. They've absolutely gone out of their way to include groups that find it difficult to get in touch with us, such as disability groups, our young people, etc. So just a massive thank you to them and for the work that they're doing to try to do the best for the people of Wirral in terms of an urban regeneration that they'll all be very proud of. Thanks again, Pat, for your leadership.
Thank you, Nisa. Thanks for those comments. Very kind of you. Jeanette?
Thanks, Pat. Yeah, I just wanted to firstly thank you for your leadership. You know, Pat, the words that spring to my mind are you've been collegiate, you're a kind man, you're a pleasure to work with, and you're unflappable, which is a great quality in a leader. We've had many, many crises and ups and downs since you took the helm in May. And you really are unflappable, and you're always there for me to phone and get the benefit of your advice and your experience from, and I'll always take that forward. You've been great to work with. It's quite emotional today. It's been a very challenging time with COVID, and everyone stepped up to the plate in terms of politicians and in terms of our workforce. So I just want to say to all the officers I've worked with, and there's probably most of them anyway, but particular thanks to Cher and her team and to Paul, to Tor, but everyone really. It's I know we'll continue to have great relationships going forward, but it's the end of an era, and I will miss you, Pat. So thank you for everything that you've done and for your great leadership. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeanette. Thank you very much indeed. Tony Jones.
Yeah, thanks for that, Pat. In a similar vein, really, it only seems like yesterday when I wished you all the very best and the health and strength that you were going to need to fulfil the duties of your office as leader when you were elected leader of the council. It's now my privilege and pleasure to wish you health and happiness and a very long and fulfilling retirement. I think I can speak for everyone when I say you'll be missed by colleagues, officers, ward residents, and all the folks you've helped, not just in New Brighton, but in the wider Wirral area and the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority, and all that's achieved with your input. Once again, enjoy your much deserved retirement, Pat, and I'm reasonably confident by saying that I'm sure that the friendships you've forged over the years will continue. Thanks, Pat. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Tony, for those kind words. Thank you very much indeed. Anissa, did you want to come in again?
No, I didn't, Pat.
No, that's from before.
Can I
Okay.
can I come in, please, Pat?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Tom.
Thanks. I mean, just wanted to echo what others have said. Really, it's been one hell of a year, and I think the kind of the video shows that it wasn't. Some of the tougher moments weren't for nothing, and you know, we had a really decent kind of vision of what we wanted the council to focus on, and we can hope and know that the things that we've done have made a difference. And on a you know personal note, thanks for taking a chance on me. And you know we're all kind of here as a team who's picked by the leader, and I do really appreciate it, and hopefully we can go on to continue to. I think some of the things that we've achieved this year in terms of some of like the collaboration on the council sets us up well to continue to make really good progress on all of our priorities. So that's certainly something that will continue to have positive effect on the council after you've gone, and I just hope you really enjoy a well-deserved sort of change of pace, Pat.
Thank you, Tom. Very kind of you. Thank you. Councillor Stuart Whittingham.
Thanks, Pat. I've been on cabinet a number of years now, and I don't think people realise how much work's involved. And no doubt, Pat, being in the leadership role, that's amplified multiple times in terms of the amount of work, and it's virtually a full-time role. I'd just like to thank all the fantastic officers I've worked with over the years. It really has been a pleasure, and we can't deliver on behalf of our residents if it wasn't for all those fantastic officers who work so hard. And no thanks to the cuts. It has been really difficult. More work to be done, more work that needs to be done, and less money to do it with. I'd like to pay tribute to yourself, Pat. I think you've excelled in the leadership role the past 12 months. We're in a really difficult position. When you took over, you managed to stabilise things and move us forward, and not really move us forward in terms of stability, but also helping to project the vision for the future of the borough. With the climate change, the housing, regeneration plans, the local plan, whatever. You managed to pull different people with different opinions together in the context of one council. And And also I pay tribute, Pat, for your personal sacrifice, because it was common knowledge that you should be enjoying retirement by now. But thanks to the COVID COVID situation. You've set us into place, and you've given that continuation of leadership and strong leadership across the borough. We needed this time. So I thank you for that, Pat. And of course, the leaders are only as good as the team. I thank all my colleagues, both present and past, for the contribution and all the support I've received. But I think, Pat, well done.
Okay. Kind words. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you very much. Liz Gray.
Thanks, Pat. I'd also like to say that I'm going to really miss you, and I'd want to thank you personally for trusting me and giving me a chance to be in Cabinet, which is it's a real honour. And I've been able to work with really impressive, really amazing officers and a really lovely, impressive team in the Cabinet. It's been a really fantastic year, and I've loved the atmosphere of optimism and collaboration that seems to be the hallmark of your leadership. And you've managed, by being so optimistic and collaborative, you've calmed some really pretty turbulent waters at times, and I think you really deserve credit for that. And I really hope that you enjoy winding down from all this quite high intensity work and stress. And thanks, Pat, for a really wonderful year. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you very, very much indeed. And any other comments?
Yes, please, Pat.
Chris. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. First of all, can I take the opportunity to thank the officers that I've worked with during the last, 7 years or something as a Cabinet member. Graham Hodkinson and the team in social care have been so fantastic, and Julie Webster, who I've already praised earlier on for the fantastic work she's done, because I don't think when she took up the role of Director of Public Health, she thought that this was going to happen. Thank you for including me again in the Cabinet, and I'm sure you and Elaine will have a wonderful retirement. I know Elaine has been wanting you to get off the hook with the council, but thanks for the work you've done, and thanks for staying on when you should have been retired already.
Chris. Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. Okay. Can I just say, just to finish, as we come to the end of this Cabinet, a great year, as we've heard and as we've seen on the video, and I do think those policies now can lay the foundations, as has been said, to put in place for the new committee system. And I think rightly so, as people have commented, the collaborative way of working, especially in a no overall control situation, and even more so in a committee system, is absolutely vital going forward, because as you've found yourselves, nothing can get done unless you've got the support of the other parties. And I don't think it's that hard on a lot of issues, to be quite honest with you, of getting support of most parties, as we found when we before COVID, when we brought them along to the when we had the leaders meetings and we brought along those issues which were controversial previously. I think they were reassured once they saw the issues and once they were able to be debated, and most of those issues just went through. So I do think it's important for the new year. Can I thank you all individually as well for your nice comments about myself? You are right, Elaine, can't wait for me to finish, that's for sure. But it's been great working with everybody on the Cabinet this year. And there has been some ups and downs and some bumps and some hurdles. There always will be, that's for sure. And you're going to have loads of them this year, as you know, especially in the committee system. I'm sure that's going to happen. But I'd like to thank all of you, the officers also, as you've all mentioned, who have been absolutely fantastic, and the way they've tackled the coronavirus crisis that has engulfed the whole country here on the Wirral was second to none. They deserve so much credit for so much work they've put in and turning everything around and looking after the people. People's lives in this borough. So thank you to all of them, and thank you to all of you as I close this meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks.